Hey everybody, what's going on? It is James here with Crypto Common Sense. Wanted to sit down and shoot a fast video. It is April 13th, 2025. And I saw an article on the news, and I'm not sure why they do this. I guess it's for clicks, but they pit different generations against each other. And so this one was like basically talking about how boomers are, crying and screaming about the stock market crashing. That Gen Z is taking full advantage in it. Like had a story about some person on TikTok who put in a big bet on the stock market and made like $42,000 in a day on this recovery bounce. So I want to talk about that real quickly because it's not always a bad idea, but keep in mind that that article is not fair. Okay. And it's not fair in the sense that your investment and your risk profile and all these things, it changes with age. If I'm 24 years old, like this person who gambled, I have my whole life for that bet to pay off. If I buy the QQQ when it's down, 25%, and I'm wrong and it goes down 50% or 70% or even 83% like the dot-com bubble, I have my whole life to allow that to come back. This person even talked about they're investing for retirement. So they're right in the sense that if they're wrong, they're probably still going to be right long term. But if I'm 60 years old or even 55 years old or even 50 years old, and I'm wrong, and it takes 15 or 20 years to recover, which is what happened in the dot-com bubble, I'm in big, big trouble because I may not be able to retire on time. So I hate articles like that because it makes people feel like they did something wrong by not gambling in the market. But at the same time, it is important to realize that if you do have a long time horizon for your investments, dips in the market, in the stock market specifically, not in individual stocks, but the overall market, they have historically always represented buying opportunities. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. And then we're going to talk about Bitcoin real quickly because I'm going to keep this video under 10 minutes. All right. So this is QQQ. Go back to the dot-com bubble. Let's say that you bought this dip here in April of 2000. Okay. We'll just say you bought it somewhere around 30% drop. So 30% was right. $83, we'll call it. So you bought right here. And yes, initially it had a bounce, and so you would have been very excited, just like these people. Oh, I made $40,000 a day. You didn't make $40,000 a day. That's one thing about the article that's misleading. They didn't make $40,000 because they didn't sell it, right? They have unrealized gains of $40,000 in a day. But if it does this and then dumps, they won't have those unrealized gains. So let's say you invested here, okay, in April of 2000. You didn't get even until November of 2013. Over 13 years went by while you were underwater. And at some point, you were underwater over 75%. So if you invested $100,000, at some point you were down to $25,000 in that account, which is horrifying. Okay. But long term, it works out. And if you're investing and you have a really long time horizon, most people already know this. If you do buy here and it drops, you don't get sad about it. You just buy more. Like every month, you just put in your $500, $200, $1,000, whatever it is you're investing. You just keep doing it because then after all this time has played out, guess what? Your cost average, it'd be way down here somewhere. So then when this eventually went back up, you'd be in really good shape. And that's one thing that from reading this article, I don't know, but that's one thing that a lot of people do really wrong is they'll stick their whole account in on that initial dip. And then they think they're so smart temporarily, but when it does this, they have nothing left to invest. And if you look at the dip right now, I'm just going to tell you guys this. I'm not trying to be a doomsday type of thing or a black cloud here, but I've talked about this inside my Discord and I'll share it publicly because I think it's very important. Where this stopped at was not a surprise. In Discord, I talked about how it was suspect that it hadn't bounced yet because it's sitting at this monthly pivot level. This was the old monthly high, all-time high. It pivoted, broke through, and markets tend to do this in an uptrend, right? There's just one thing though. It didn't pivot right here. It didn't start to move back up right here like it should. The TA didn't push it back up. Trump pushed it back up. All right, this is not a political video, but Trump paused the tariffs and then the market skyrocketed. It had its biggest single day gain I believe since 2008. So I'm very concerned about this because those tariffs, those pauses are set to expire within 90 days. So what I'm watching for in the back of my mind is very simple. Did he just create the complacency bounce? Does this end up being a bounce that does something like this? Those tariff pauses expire, all heck breaks loose, and then we get the C leg, right? The A, B, C, A, B, C, because that would be very, very cliche market behavior. That would be our complacency bounce, which is what we would be in right now. And it does feel like complacency, which is not a scientific approach, but just from being in the markets now for about 8 years and going through multiple bubbles in cryptocurrency, we have this overall sense that, oh, this was a dip, no big deal. We just have to wait for the next rally, essentially. And maybe we do get another rally, but I'm really concerned that we're going to get this. Okay. So what I'll say in this video is very simple. Keep an eye out for that. It's something that would play out over the next several months, not days. And B, if we do get a complacency bounce and it really starts setting up, don't be afraid. And I'm not telling you what to do, but don't be afraid to break from the masses with cryptocurrency. Don't automatically assume that Bitcoin has to go to $200,000 or $250,000. Now, that was one of my previous predictions, based on what was happening at that time in the markets. And I still think it's a possibility. But if the stock market melts down, I would bet almost anything that Bitcoin melts down with it. In fact, I would bet almost anything that Bitcoin has a bigger, harder drop than stocks if stocks melt. Okay, so if we get a big bear market in stocks where the QQQ drops 70 or 80%, I would fully expect Bitcoin to drop at least 90 to 95%. So keep an eye on those things. Couple things to remember. A, I do have a very affordable entry-level package now for people that want to join my private community, get more insights from me, and also get access to some of my proprietary tools. I'll leave a link down in the description. You can go check that out if you want to learn more about that. Again, it comes with a couple of different indicators, especially good for, saving time on swing trades. So you're not always having to watch the charts and so that you're not missing opportunities. And also I'll teach people my own style of technical analysis because it is different from what most people teach. I'm not a guy that trades 5 shares here and 5 shares there. I bought this and sold it 3 months later. A busy day for me is anywhere from $10 to $12 million in volume in a single 6.5 hour trade period. So yes, I do TA a little bit differently because I'm actually in there and I actually get real world data. For example, one of the reasons that I expected this big sell-off, and I talked about this in Discord ahead of time, was because I was seeing slippage on the QQQ. I was seeing slippage in my orders up to 40 cents of slippage on the QQQ, when typical slippage on QQQ is nowhere more than 2 to 3 cents, including the spread. So when I started seeing orders that were getting 20, 30, 40 cent slippage, at first I thought something was wrong with my broker and actually switched brokers over it. And then when I started getting the same behavior at the new broker, I realized the market is thin and liquidity is drying up, which told me that the big players were pulling out. And literally within like 2 days of me posting about that, the market completely melted down. So there's difference in people who actually trade and are in the trenches day after day for 8 years, like I have been, and people who write a few books on TA and then regurgitate the same myths over and over again. If you want to learn about that, again, there's a link down in the description. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please remember that I am not a financial advisor. I am still just some guy sitting in a spare bedroom, regardless of how much volume I trade. And that means that you should always go out and do your own due diligence and seek out professional financial advice from a licensed financial advisor for making any type of investment in cryptocurrency, the stock market, precious metals, Forex, or any other tradable assets. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you leave a comment. All those things show appreciation, and it takes such little effort. So please do those things if you do appreciate the content that I provide. And as always, please remember, trade safe.